Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Darrell Van Kirk, V-A-N-K-I-R-K. I'm the Troop H Harrisburg Crime Section Commander. I'm joined by members of the Pennsylvania State Police, as well as Mr. Brian Sennett, the Adams County District Attorney. At this time this morning, I'm going to turn this morning's press conference over to Mr. Sennett. Thank you.
Morning. This is Iris Mummert. On February 6th of 2019 with cocaine, opiates, and THC in her system. Iris was violently shaken by her mother, Felicia Ellis, on May 29th, 2020, causing multiple bruises on her forehead, her face, her lip, her ears, her right upper chest near her clavicle. She suffered a fracture to her right clavicle, a right frontal skull fracture, a left hemispheric and right parietal subdural hematomas, commonly known as brain bleeds, frank multiple retinal hemorrhages of both eyes, and a retinal detachment in her left eye. These injuries resulted in Iris's death 2 days later on May 31st, 2020. Felicia Ellis said that she inflicted these injuries because she was frustrated, upset, and wanted a few minutes to herself. Ellis was ultimately charged with murdering her daughter and pled guilty to murder of the third degree. As a result of that homicide investigation and prosecution, it became apparent that several serious failures occurred in the supervision and reunification process in this case. Iris's murder was very likely avoidable had Adams County Children and Youth Services not violated the duty of care they had to Iris and her older sister, who I'll refer to by initials as ZM. In order to investigate these failures, in October of 2022, I contacted the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General and requested to use the resources of the statewide investigating grand jury. This entire investigation, from a police standpoint, was handled by the Pennsylvania State Police. From a prosecution standpoint, the Adams County District Attorney's Office has maintained control over the case with the assistance of the resources of the Office of Attorney General. The grand jury conducted an investigation into allegations of Adams County, that the Adams County employees from Children and Youth Services violated the Crimes Code when they minimized and ignored multiple concerns expressed to them about Felicia Ellis and her ability to safely care for her children, Iris Mummert and ZM. That created a substantial risk of death or serious bodily injury to both of them. The facts that were presented to the grand jury showed that Adams County Children and Youth Services obtained emergency protective custody of both children on February 12th of 2019. Adams County Children and Youth Services obtained physical and legal custody on February 28th of 2019. At least 3 employees of the Adams County Children and Youth Services were directly involved in the supervision of and provision of services to Iris and her sister ZM, as well as to Ellis. Those individuals are Stephen Murphy, who was an Adams County Children and Youth caseworker, Clarissa Kiesling, also an Adams County Children and Youth supervisor, who supervised Stephen Murphy, and Sherry DePasqua, who is the Assistant Administrator of Adams County Children and Youth Services and directly supervised both Murphy, Kiesling, and this case. On multiple occasions over a period of several months, the foster parents for the children and various other service providers engaged by Adams County Children and Youth Services expressed their concerns about Ellis's behavior and the safety of the children to these employees. These employees simply dismissed the concerns out of hand, failed to conduct any follow-up investigation, or minimized the concerns during court proceedings, with Adams County Children and Youth Services ultimately recommending that the children be returned to Ellis. Based on their conduct, on June 29, 2023, the statewide investigating grand jury recommended that all three of these employees, Murphy, Kiesling, and DePasqua, be charged with endangering the welfare of children. 2 counts, each a felony of the first degree. Today, charges have been filed against each of these 3 individuals, Mr. Murphy, Ms. Kiesling, and Ms. DePasqua, and they have been charged with the offenses as recommended by the statewide investigating grand jury. Specific failures identified to Adams County Children and Youth Services were perceived limited cognitive functioning on Ellis's part, anxiety, possible domestic abuse, inability to manage both children at the same time without assistance, difficulty in maintaining a schedule of visits and appointments, often followed by conflicting excuses given by Ellis. More specific examples of these failures are laid out in pages 6 through 8 of the presentment that is attached to the affidavit of probable cause. And that's what we're working on getting you guys a copy of now. Adams County Children and Youth Services went on to continue to ignore the receipt of concerns or minimize them, and more importantly, failed to alert the court as to the mounting concerns raised by a myriad of entities. These are also more specifically laid out in pages 8 through 10 of the presentment. Despite the concerns about Ellis and reunification, Murphy and Kiesling, with the approval of DePasqua, recommended to the court that physical custody of both children be returned to Ellis at a court proceeding on February 27, 2020. Legal custody of both children at that time remained with Adams County Children and Youth Services. Following this return of physical custody, various service providers still expressed grave concerns over Ellis's ability to supervise her children, as well as Ellis's lack of compliance with the recommendations as set forth in the various reports and evaluations as referenced in pages 10 through 12 of the presentment. The final court proceeding prior to Ellis murdering Iris occurred on May 22nd, 2020, just 7 days prior to Ellis inflicting the injuries which killed Iris. Astonishingly, at that court proceeding, no one from Adams County Children and Youth Services informed the court that a child line referral was received by the agency just the previous day. This is despite the fact that all 3 of these defendants actually attended that hearing in person. Ironically, and clearly based on the lack of information provided to the court prior to or during that May 22nd hearing, the presiding judge actually stated to Ellis, "It is more about trying to make sure that your children are safe, and I feel pretty confident as I'm sitting here right now that they are." To put it bluntly, despite having received concerns, complaints, and child line referrals from the foster parents, service providers, and other individuals on a consistent basis throughout all 15 short months of Iris's life, none of these Adams County Children and Youth caseworkers or supervisors identified above ever raised these concerns to the presiding judge or ensured the concerns were addressed in any significant fashion. Now I want to take a moment to address kind of how we got here from the homicide to where we are now. I know I mentioned referencing or using the resources of the Attorney General. When the charges were filed by the state police in this case against Ellis back in 2020, the homicide prosecution was moving forward. And at a point relatively close to the time when the case was supposed to go to trial, the assigned prosecutor at that time left the case and left the office, and so we needed to assign a new prosecutor. Due to staffing issues at the time, I appointed Ed Paskey, who's a special assistant prosecutor with the Adams County District Attorney's Office, to handle the homicide prosecution on behalf of our office. I've known Ed for more than 20 years and trusted him implicitly. He led the child abuse unit in the York County DA's office when I first started there, and I just think the world of Ed and his ability. So when I appointed Ed, he handled the prosecution, and that resulted in the plea that Ellis made to third-degree murder. Following that, both Ed and the state police approached me and said this was avoidable. There were too many red flags that came up as part of the Adams County Children and Youth Supervision. There's material out there, there's confirmation of emails and text messages and things like that where they were alerted to specific concerns that were never addressed to the court. Would you be willing to take a look into it? So we did. We all met on a couple of different occasions, and we thought not having a grand jury in Adams County, the most appropriate way to handle it was to ask to use the resources of the grand jury. And as you know, grand jury investigations are secret, they're conducted in secret, but the presentment itself, once returned, is allowed to be shared with you all as part of the charging documents. So I can speak to some of that stuff, but there may be things, if you have specific questions, that we can't, but I'll do the best that I can. But I would be remiss if I did not specifically thank the state police investigators who ran this investigation now for over 3 years, and Attorney Paskey, who really did dogged work on this investigation, handled the case with me through the Attorney General's office, and will remain on for the prosecution of these 3 people. Does anybody have any questions?
Sir, can you specifically identify where children and youth failed and resulted in the death of this child?
I think in 2 specific ways. I think that concerns both of the foster parents of things they were observing, and you'll notice in the presentment when you get a chance to read that, these foster parents, specifically the mother, has experience in children and youth services. That was her career, is her career. And so her ability to see these things and know what resources exist, what shortcomings may be happening, is unique in this particular circumstance. So the observations of the foster parents, as well as these other service providers that you'll see in the presentment, they were alerting children and youth services to this. And I think children and youth services, at least these 3 individuals, either willfully chose not to listen to that or didn't do what they should to bring that to the court's attention. And when I said twofold, one, those matters need to be brought to the judge to say, here are the concerns we're hearing, here are the shortcomings that have been reported. And second, even on their own, without the judge's involvement, they need to be ensuring that those concerns are addressed, whether it be domestic violence in the home, cognitive disabilities, if there's substance abuse, things like that. They need to be addressed both by CYS and brought to the court's attention so they can make a decision.
What's the potential penalty for 2 counts after being convicted?
Each of these are filed as a felony of the 1st degree. Ordinarily, endangering the welfare is a misdemeanor of the 1st degree. However, where it's displayed as an ongoing course of conduct, the victim is under the age of 6, and death or serious bodily injury is either cause or risk, it becomes a felony of the 1st degree. So that's what is the charge in each of these cases, and felony ones carry up to 20 years in prison.
And what's the status of her sister?
She remains with her adoptive parents, and that's probably about the best I can say to that. Yeah.
This little girl was murdered 3 years ago, and just today these individuals are being charged. Were they overseeing any other over the past 3 years, potential for any other children to be in danger?
I don't know about the potential for children to be in danger because I think that forces me to take a bit of a leap, but they all work for CYS up until 2014. Stephen Murphy resigned with CYS through the, whether that had any Children and Youth Services. As recently as this morning, they were there this morning when they were taken into custody.
They were taken into custody at work this morning?
Yeah, well, they turned themselves into Magistrate Mark Bayshall's office where the charges were filed.
And do you have the date as to when that man resigned?
July 14th.
July 14th.
Yeah.
Can you just read off the names of the 3 employees
Sure.
again, and possibly the spelling if you have it?
Sure, and we're going to give you guys copies. The problem here is the presentment is rather long, so it's a lot of paper, and we got behind at the magistrate's office, which is a whole different story, but Stephen Murphy, S-T-E-V-E-N, Murphy's a common spelling, Clarissa, C-L-A-R-I-S-S-A, Kiesling, K-I-E-S-S-L-I-N-G.
Can you do that one again, please?
Yeah. Both first and last?
Yeah.
Okay. Clarissa, C-L-A-R-I-S-S-A. Kiesling is K-S-S-L-I-N-G. Okay? And then Sherry is S-H-E-I. Was B, little e, capital P, A-S-Q-U-A.
As a result of their arrest this morning, were they fired from the position?
Obviously, that's a county personnel thing. I can tell you, though, that I did alert to the county commission it's been filed. So what they choose to do with it, obviously, the ball's in their court there.
So other than the man, he's gone. He'd been gone anyway.
Right.
So but these two women, Ms. Kiesling and the assistant supervisor, were in this morning. Which CYA office were they based at?
The Gettysburg Human Services Building out on Boyd School Road.
I'm sorry?
It's out on Boyd.
Been arrested this morning?
Not yet. It's my understanding he's turning himself into the magistrate.
That child when she died?
She was 15 months old.
15 months. And can you just say her spelling as well? Iris?
Yeah, I-R-I-S-M-U-M-M-E-R-T. Yeah.
So I know these individuals were just arrested and charged this morning. What happens with CYS now, though? How do they move forward?
To the Children and Youth Services, I don't know what they'll do, as I indicated to these individuals on personnel. It's a big office, so there are a lot of people who are employed there. How they choose to transition, if they had particular cases or whatever, I really don't know. I really don't know.
So the cracks in the system came from CYS specifically, and you guys just kind of undertook the investigation.
Right. I think the foster parents, as well as other service providers, when Iris was killed, they alerted the state police that, there were red flags here. This could have been things were not done by CYS that should have been done, specifically not following up on concerns and not addressing them to the court. Yeah, sure.
To your knowledge, is this the first time that this sort of thing has happened in Gettysburg with CYS?
Absolutely, it's the first time. Yeah.
So this was like around COVID, right, 2020?
Mhm.
So was that any indication of like why services might have been lapsed? Like I wasn't sure if something that was brought up at all.
Well, if you look, the child was returned February 27th. The children, I should say, were temporary custody. Iris was murdered just in May, so we were 2 months into COVID, but the concerns that were being addressed in the last 15 months certainly had not been addressed. So I don't think COVID had any impact on the death of Iris Mummert for sure.
So the concerns came right away. She was born with, drugs in her system, and
Right.
so she was on CYS's radar from the moment she was born.
Absolutely. And the mother had been failing to comply with other treatment plans or service plans through CYS with regard to the other child. That's why she was taken into custody, protective custody as well. Yep.
I mean, just looking at this photo and, you saying that this whole thing could have been prevented, I mean, just what goes through your mind, especially when we're dealing with, such a young child?
I mean, she's obviously adorable. She's 15 months old at the time she's killed. She had her, they had this little baby at a couple weeks, as foster parents, and the system let her down. These concerns were addressed to CYS. They were made aware of not just one thing, not one missed appointment, not one, failed drug test or something like that. It was over and over and over again, a system of cognitive dysfunction, and yet they didn't do anything about it. And, they're ultimately going to have to answer the question as to why they didn't do what they were supposed to do. But we can prove definitively that they didn't do what they were supposed to do. It's tragic.
Did you say the age of the sister?
I do have that. She was, what, a year and a half older? Does that sound right, Ed? A year and a half older. So she was 3 when this all started to happen.
She would be 6
Right,
now.
yeah.
Is she still in the area?
I don't feel comfortable talking about that. I'm sorry. I'm trying to protect her privacy, obviously.
One last time, can you say Iris's last name and spell?
M-U-M-M, Mummert.
Okay.
Can you also mention like the spelling of the special prosecutor?
Paskey, P-A-S-K-E-Y.
He's with the Attorney General.
No, he's been appointed by me to prosecute this case.
So what's the message to the community going forward?
Well, that there was a lack of vigilance on the part of one of the entities that we trust to supervise our children and we trust to relate to the court concerns about children and reunification, and that they failed in this particular case, but there are, good people out there who are looking into making sure these things don't happen again.
Is there, on your part, a view why it failed? I mean, we understand what you said they did,
Yeah.
but why did they act this way?
It would be almost total speculation on my part, but the speculation is that I believe at least certain of these actors thought they knew better, or they wouldn't be told what they were supposed to do, that they had their own idea of how this case should be supervised, and that's the way it was presented to the court. That's the best answer I can give to that question.
Do you have information about the years of these?
Not relating that to you, but they both the ones that are still there have been there quite some time.
Moving forward, is the dean's office to maybe monitor CYS a little bit more closely? Kind of walk me through how you guys move forward after
Yeah,
this.
we're not in a supervisory capacity to CYS. They're overseen by the county commissioners, directly by the county commissioners, not by the court. But obviously, if there are concerns, we will get involved in that. And I can say definitively, this investigation is not over. There are still several facets of this investigation that are proceeding. If there are additional charges that are warranted, we will file them. We will alert the media, obviously, if there's something there. But this is, we thought, an important time to bring forward what we've uncovered and where we are with this particular case now.
And are you going to look at these social workers that are now facing charges? Are you going to look at other cases that they were involved in?
I don't have any reason to do that right now. If there was some sort of complaint or something that was brought to our attention, of course we would. Yeah.